History is full of civilizations we know well: the Egyptians, the Romans, the Greeks. Their art, their beliefs, their writing, studied, catalogued, and taught in schools around the world. We feel like we understand them, at least in outline. But there are others, cultures that rose, flourished, and vanished, leaving behind objects so strange, so unlike anything else from their time, that historians are still struggling to explain them thousands of years later. In this video, we're looking at two of those civilizations. One was buried in the hills of Sichuan province, China, where a farmer digging a ditch in 1929 accidentally struck the edge of one of the most baffling archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. Bronze masks with enormous projecting eyes, towering human statues. A culture so visually unlike anything else in ancient China that for decades, researchers weren't even sure where to place it in history. The other is older still, much older, found in the very earliest layers of Mesopotamian civilization in what is now southern Iraq, predating writing, predating the Sumerians, predating almost everything we consider the beginning of recorded human culture. And what they left behind were small clay figurines with perfectly human bodies and unmistakably reptilian faces. Both cultures disappeared without explanation. Neither left a single written word, and both left behind objects that refused to be neatly explained. The story of Sanxingdui begins quietly. In 1929, a farmer in Sichuan province was digging an irrigation ditch when his spade struck something unexpected: a cache of jade pieces buried in the earth. The find was recorded. A few items were collected, and then, largely, the world moved on. The site sat undisturbed for decades. It wasn't until the 1980s that serious excavation began. And what archaeologists found beneath that field in Sichuan stopped them cold. Two large sacrificial pits, packed with thousands of artifacts: bronze, gold, jade, ivory. Objects that had clearly been placed there deliberately, some of them partially burned, some of them deliberately broken before being buried, as if part of a ritual whose meaning has been entirely lost. But it wasn't just the quantity of objects that was striking, it was what they looked like. They looked like nothing else in Chinese archaeology. The bronze masks are what most people think of first when they encounter Sanxingdui. Some have faces more than a meter wide. Many feature eyes that don't sit flush with the face. They project outward, extending from the mask in wide tubes or elongated slits, as if designed to see something beyond the ordinary range of human vision. The noses are bold, the ears are large and sharply defined. The mouths curve into expressions that feel more symbolic than human. They are extraordinary objects, and they are deeply, persistently strange. Alongside the masks came statues, including a standing bronze figure over 2 meters tall, thought to have once held an ivory tusk in its outstretched hands, and a bronze tree, nearly 4 meters high, with curling branches, hung with delicate decorations, unlike anything produced anywhere else in the ancient world. The metallurgy was sophisticated. The bronzes were cast in separate sections and fitted together with remarkable precision. Whoever made these objects knew exactly what they were doing. What they were making and why is a different question entirely. Here is where Sanxingdui gets genuinely difficult to explain. At the same time, this culture was producing these extraordinary objects in Sichuan. Another Bronze Age civilization, the Shang dynasty, was flourishing a few hundred kilometers to the northeast, along the Yellow River. The Shang were sophisticated metalworkers themselves. They left behind rich bronzes, written oracle bones, and a well-documented archaeological record. But Sanxingdui's artifacts share almost nothing with the Shang in terms of artistic style or iconography. The two cultures clearly knew about each other, shared technologies, suggest some degree of contact, but their artistic and symbolic worlds are almost entirely separate, which raises a question that has no clean answer. How did a civilization this sophisticated, capable of producing objects of this quality at this scale, develop in what appears to be near total artistic isolation? Were they drawing on an even older tradition, something that predates both them and the Shang, that we simply haven't found yet? Or did they arrive at this entirely on their own? And then there's the matter of the pits themselves. Thousands of valuable objects, bronze, gold, ivory, jade, deliberately buried, some broken, some burned, all of them removed from circulation, placed in the ground, and left there. This wasn't random, it was intentional. It looks, to every archaeologist who has studied it, like a ritual, a ceremony of some kind tied to the end of this civilization's presence at this site. At some point, Sanxingdui was abandoned. Why remains unknown. Environmental change, flooding, political collapse, conflict, all have been proposed. What's certain is that the culture vanished from the archaeological record, leaving no descendants we can clearly identify, no texts, no explanations. Just the objects in the pits, still waiting, after 3,000 years, for someone to understand what they meant. From Sichuan, we travel west, far west, and back in time, much further back, to the flat, sun-baked plains of southern Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, the cradle of civilization, as it's often called, the place where cities first appeared, where writing was invented, where the ancient world, as we understand it, began to take shape. But before all of that, before the Sumerians, before cuneiform, before any of the structures we associate with early civilization, there was the Ubaid culture, dated to roughly 5,000 to 4,000 BC. The Ubaid people were farmers and herders who built some of the earliest known temples in the region. They practiced irrigated agriculture. They produced beautifully decorated pottery. They traded goods across hundreds of kilometers. By every measure, they were a complex, organized, thriving culture. And they made figurines that nobody has ever been able to fully explain. The first ones were found in 1919, during British excavations at sites including Tel al-Ubaid, Ur, and Eridu, some of the oldest human settlements ever uncovered. The figurines were found mixed in with the ordinary debris of daily life, near hearths, in domestic spaces, alongside tools and pottery and the remnants of meals. They were small, ranging from a few centimeters to about 20 centimeters tall. The bodies were unmistakably human. The heads were not. Elongated muzzles, wide, unblinking almond-shaped eyes, smooth surfaces where a human face should be, sometimes marked with ridges or crests running from brow to crown. Some wore incised clothing, belts, skirts, elaborate neckwear. Others were nude, and a striking subset depicted a figure cradling an infant with the same reptilian features as the adult holding it. Whoever or whatever these figurines represented, the concept was consistent enough across multiple sites and generations of makers that it clearly meant something specific, something that everyone in Ubaid society would have understood immediately. We no longer understand it at all. The mainstream theories are religious. Fertility figures, protective deities, representations of ancestor spirits, shamanic symbols of transformation. All of these fit within what we know about how early cultures used figurines, but none of them fully accounts for the faces. Reptilian imagery does appear in later Mesopotamian mythology, snakes and serpents tied to creation, renewal, and the underworld. It's possible the al-Ubaid figurines are early expressions of ideas that would eventually filter into Sumerian and Babylonian belief systems, a thread connecting the earliest layer of civilization in this region to everything that came after it. Or they could represent something else entirely, something whose meaning dissolved before writing existed to preserve it. What we know for certain is this: the al-Ubaid people were not primitive. They built temples, they organized communities, they maintained trade networks stretching hundreds of kilometers. They were capable of sophisticated symbolic thought. And the objects they chose to make, in the privacy of their homes, in the spaces closest to their daily lives, had faces that looked like this. The figurines were found not in temples or elite burial sites, but in ordinary domestic spaces, which suggests these weren't objects of distant formal religion. They were personal, intimate, things people lived alongside. What did it mean to keep one of these in your home? What did it mean to hold it? To make one for a child? We don't know. The al-Ubaid left no writing, no texts, no explanations of any kind. Everything we know about what they believed comes from what they left in the ground, and the figurines, more than anything else they made, refused to give up their meaning. Both Sanxingdui and the al-Ubaid civilization remind us of the same thing. History is not a complete record. It is a series of fragments separated by vast silences. The civilizations that left writing behind have shaped almost everything we think we know about the ancient world. But the ones that didn't, the ones that came before writing or that developed apart from it, are still out there, still being uncovered, still asking questions we don't yet know how to answer. What we find in those silences is often stranger than anything we could have predicted, and there is almost certainly more still to find. Which of these two civilizations stayed with you the most? Do you have a theory, or think there's a culture we missed? Drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this, subscribe. We have more coming: lost cities, forgotten cultures, and the strange, enduring questions that history leaves behind. Until next time, stay curious. If this mystery fascinates you, share your thoughts and theories below. And if you want to continue exploring the secrets of the ancient world, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications.